Okay, leg number 5, we'll just give it a try. Fly the following route: Dinkelspool, Gebno, Lubbock, and so on. When arriving over Lubbock, enter the published holding using a direct entry. Fly a minimum of 2 full holding patterns before commencing the ILS published approach to the active runway. Coordinate your intention with ADC. In your report, please answer the following question. Your trip distance is... Ah, shit. I did not answer the question in here. And I can't free... Or can I? I can. That's a pity. I forgot to answer that question. The holding speeds, because that's in the X course of the leg number 4, and until and inclusive flight level 140, that's 230 knots for a Boeing 737. That would be the correct answer. Well, let's see if that gets accepted. Anyways. Fly minimum of 2 holding patterns before commencing the ILS published approach into the active runway. Got in your intention with ADC. In your report, please answer the following question. Your trip distance is 15 nautical miles. There is no wind. Your aircraft flies 110 knots through airspeed at 1,500 feet and consumes 25 kilograms of fuel per hour in kilogram. How much contingency fuel do you have to uplift? And that will be the briefing of leg number 5. So first of all, that's the task. That's active runway and stuff. That's not too complicated. That's the crosswind component angle that we can calculate again. We will go into that later because it's sometimes hard to figure out because we have no data for the upper winds, and they can be somewhat different from the meta wind. And yeah, so you get 2 components that you need to compensate for. The first thing is the crosswind component, of course, that you are flying in a manner that you're not flying the outbound leg. So the inbound leg is going to be quite easy because we are holding over a VOR. That means holding you over VOR, we don't need the crosswind component for the inbound leg because we will just fly along the radial. But for the outbound leg, you need the crosswind component because otherwise your outbound leg is going to be something like this or something like this with a crosswind. And since we have a holding time of 60 seconds, we also want to make sure that with the given speed, that is for our aircraft 170 knots indicated airspeed, and 60 seconds, 170 knots indicated airspeed gives you a certain leg length. And if you have heavy tail or headwind, you will make that outbound leg a lot shorter than you should, and therefore you also need to compensate for the head and tailwind component. But we will go into that calculation when we are in the air because there is quite some flight time, about 20 to 30 minutes, so we'll make the calculations while we are en route. Tips, practice, X course. And the X course in leg number 5 is about the contingency fuel calculation. Pretty interesting stuff. We could make that calculation actually for our flight right now. Use that. Add a new flight. We are flying from Nürnberg to Stuttgart. Gonna plan that flight. We are using that Super King Air. And if I'm not mistaken, we got all the correct performance data in here. Taxi fuel. Empty weight, fuel capacity. Approach burn 9 kilograms. Who? That's interesting. There's no fuel burner over here. Am I just blind, or is there no fuel burn in here? Random payload. Fuel. Extra time. No, that's not the route that we want to fly. That's the route that we want to fly. We don't need an arrival route because Lubbock is already the final or the initial approach fix. Whoops. So that is contingency 12. However, you just can't find out what the fuel burn of that aircraft is. At least not what the numbers are that PFPX is calculating with. Let's see, 160. Well, and I also don't know if he's actually taking winds into account or not. Okay, whatever. Also wanna put that route in here. Runway 28. Oops. That is looking kind of weird. Whatever. So reset that. IFR General Aviation Beach 20 SDFGR way from Nürnberg. Departure time 25. We're gonna fly level 18 0, and the departure route is Dinkelsbühl 4 kilo. This time we do not enter an arrival route because Lübeck is the final, the initial approach fix already. Estimate time en route gonna be 28 and 2 holdings, so let's say 44. Two holdings. Holdings over LBU. So we got 8 packs on board. That's it. So we connect, and that route is not too interesting, but what's really interesting, so first of all we need the sit for runway 28 again, and then we're looking for the charts of Stuttgart. At Stuttgart we at the moment have runway 25 active. Oops, what's that? Stuttgart. ILS runway 25, that's what we need. And there is the published holding over Lübeck. And since we're coming from this direction, just going to that X course again, we are coming from this. We're coming from this direction, or are we? Oh, it's a left-hand holding, so I need to rethink. Yeah, we are coming from that direction, and that's a direct entry. This is left-hand turns. Yeah. Okay, but first we will need to make ourselves aware of the departure route. That is Dinkelsbühl 4 kilo. We need the radial 277 Nürnberg to 8.3 dm in Nürnberg or 6,000 feet, whichever is later. Then left turn on track 179 to Bolsee. Right turn on track 254 to Dinkelsbühl. So we need Bolsee. That's an Arnav waypoint. We're flying from Nürnberg to Stuttgart. First waypoint in that route is Gebno. That's not wrong, but that's also not enough. Dinkelsbühl, Gebno, Nosbu, Lübeck. Lübeck, that's good. But we will also need so that's that route. And on that turn we don't want to turn to Bosi, then Dickelsbill. So we will need Bosi. Bosi, Dinkelsbühl, that's it. So, and the first thing we will need is Nuremberg NUB 11575. 11575. We put that in the nav one. Radial 277. That is in there already, the radial 277, since we still got that from departure. The initial climb is flight level 70 and at 6000 or 8.3 DME. And UB, whichever is later, we make the left turn to Bosi. So much for the departure route. München, Servus, Delta India Sierra Charlie Oscar at Nürnberg, again request startup to Stuttgart. Welchen Räder? Delta India Sierra Charlie Oscar? Alles klar, dann machen wir einfach auf dem Südradar weiter. Kannst du mir sagen, dass du gehst? Na, dann wird er auch wissen, warum ich zu ihm komme. Also, servus. So machen wir es. Servus. Now if that was working. That is working. Da ist er. München Radar, Servus, Delta India Sierra Charlie Oscar at Nürnberg, request startup to Stuttgart. Delta Sierra Charlie Oscar cleared Stuttgart, Dinkelsbühl 4 kilo, initially flight level 160, squawk 1527. That's so nice. We can initially climb straight ahead. And 1527. One 527. Alrighty then. Unfeather that. Alrighty then. So I want to close, no, not that door, but that door. Delta Sierra Charlie to Oscar, ready for taxi. November 1 Bravo, holding point runway 28, Delta Sierra Charlie Oscar. So 8.3 DME or 6000, whichever is later. We make the left turn. Let's just check. Track 179 to Ballsy. Highway 28, cleared for takeoff, Delta Charlie Oscar. Nav and climb and altitude select. That's all we need. So we can couple that already. Increase that rate of climb a bit. Right, an 8.6 DME or 6,000 feet, whichever is later. Delta Sierra Charlie Oscar, request to fly as filed. Level 160 Delta Charlie Oscar. That knob. Actually, I want to fly that IS and speed up a little bit. was wondering already about the climb performance. For some reason the flaps went down again. Now there we go. So we're about to pass the 6,000 feet, but not yet at 8.3 DME. So I'm going to switch that to standard. Whoops. So let's see if that is working right now. That's 8.3 DME. Now if we had direct to switch that to GPS. It's even working. Wherever that It's not capturing the GPS right now. Or 2705, Delta Charlie Oscar, danke, servus. Angrada, gute Delta Sierra Charlie Oscar, Flight Level 160. No idea where we can climb. Maybe because we're not in his sector yet. issue. Okay. Seems to be some trouble for that ATC. Alright, let's just prepare that holding. .77. We're going to put that in nav2 because nav1 is going to be the ILS receiver. And the ILS frequency is 109.9. And the loop frequency is 109.2. 109.2. And for the missed approach, we will also need the radial Stuttgart, and we put that on nav1 standby because it's going to be the same track. And that's STG 11685. 11685. And we want to have on standby the DME Stuttgart 115.45 to get the reference to the airport, in case we need that. So now, with that dialed in, you can see here our nav setup, VOR1 is the ILS frequency. On standby we get the Stuttgart frequency in case of missed approach. Right here is the Lübeck frequency for our holding, and on standby that's the DME to Stuttgart. And since we're flying just straight and level at the moment, we're going to switch to the heading, switch to that VOR1 and dial in the radial already. That's going to be the inbound track 177 that we want to have here. Whoops. .177. Now that was of course wrong because in the nav1 we get 252. That's what the course should be. .252. And now on the nav2 we want to have 177. Sierra Charlie Oscar, any chance for level 180 is fired? Climbing flight level 180, Delta Sierra Charlie Oscar. I think at least that was filed. 180. Yes, that was filed. 180. Was ist am FSX besser als am FS am X-Plane? Ich meine, da sind in der Regel irgendwie 10 bis 15 Streams für FSX. Wenn man unbedingt FSX sehen will. So, I'm going to switch to GPS again. What we will also need is the timer right here. Unfortunately, I have no idea how to reset the timer. but it's gonna do anyways. So, and according to the latest meter of Stuttgart, wind is 240 at 10 knots, so we want to calculate some wind corrections right here. 240 at 10 knots, that means the wind is blowing from that direction. And the wind correction, no. Where's that wind correction? Oh, that is not in here. So that is 177 and 240, if I'm not mistaken. 177, 240. No. Clear. Yeah, why can't clear that? That's right here. So 240 minus 177. 240 minus 177. That's that. And then we need to write that. Yeah, and it's 089, and that's correct because it's almost a crosswind. And we calculate that by the wind that is 10 knots. Multiply by 10. So the crosswind component is 9 knots. And that gives us logically a tailwind component of 1 knot. Or a headwind component of 1 knot. Basically nothing that we really need to consider, but we'll do that anyways. So 9 knots, and our speed is going to be 170. That's the holding speed for us, and that means 9 by 60. 60 divided by our holding speed. So we need a correction and a wind correction of 3 degrees for the outbound leg. So let's just take a notepad here. Desktop notepad. The outbound leg is 357, and we need a correction of 3 degrees. That means we're flying 354. 354. In the inbound leg we would just follow the radial, so it's not too bad, but the outbound leg should be 354 degrees. And for the tailwind component, that's only 1 knot, but we'll still calculate that. There is something weird in that. Correct. In that calculation. Oh yeah, that 1 knot, so that means we just start the turn at 95 seconds and not at 60 seconds. So that's just nullified. Descent flight level 150 Delta Charlie Oscar. On 120 on flight level 160, contact Langen 125, say again frequency, Delta Charlie Oscar. 12505 Delta Charlie Oscar. One 2505. So, right here we're going to switch. Arada Delta Sierra Charlie Oscar passing level 160, descending 150, information echo. Descent 5000 feet, QNH 1030, Delta Sierra Charlie Oscar. How many holdings shall we fly? Fly minimum of 2 full holdings. The Daniel Sierra Charlie Oscar request holding over Lubbock is published. Holding over Lubbock is published, altitude 5000 feet, Delta India Sierra Charlie Oscar. So we are now turning direct to Lubbock. That would be the green needle. That also means we can swap to radio navigation. Just in a second. And that is right here. And as we want to use the VOR2 for the whole thing. And I want to have the VOR2 pointer as the blue needle to be able to fly direct to. Okay. Just need to change the heading. We want to slow down. To be in the holding at speed 170. So we're going to reduce that to IS, not to overshoot just in the beginning. So heading, now we need that outbound leg heading already, 354, so we're going to make a left turn. When we're passing the station, we'll make a left turn onto that heading 354. That's all we need. Just verify if that speed is correct. Speed, holding speed 170 for us. Oops, should have calculated the wind correction also for that, but no. Passing that because the from 2 has switched. We're going to turn onto 354. So and as soon as the wings start to level again, we will start the timer. Because when the wings start to level, that's our timing to start the timer. That's where it counts, the 60 seconds. Actually, while descending, it's quite comfortable because we don't need to hold that speed. The autopilot will do that, but since there's no auto thrust system, as soon as we start now reaching 6,000 feet, and the airplane's gonna level out. Speaking of level out, that's the turn. We need to increase speed again to maintain, or increase thrust again to maintain that 170 speed. So, since we got a slight tailwind right now, we want to start that turn at 59 seconds. Fortunately, that's going to be right at the time when we will start losing speed. At least I hope that's what the autopilot does. Yes, he's leveling out now. And that's 59 seconds, so we turn left. Oh, there's 2 independent heading books, so I never knew that. Because now if we're going too slow during that turn, we will make a shorter turn and having difficulties to intercept that radial again. 177, so at 207 we want to intercept the radial. Just leaving that speed a little bit higher for the moment to compensate for that decreased speed. Okay, something definitely totally wrong here. Because that upper wind was so strong, I'm just noticing that we were shifted so far to the to the east, and even though we had a wind correction, let's see what the wind says. We got winds with 2.5 knots right here, and also from a different direction. So we will add another 3 degrees to our wind correction angle. Ah, shit, now I forgot that turn. Okay, seems that we also have to refly that leg. I should have taken that wind a lot earlier. Mhm. I don't know, I didn't get this. Why it wasn't intercepting. Right, we're gonna fly heading 350 this time. So remember 320. At 420 we want to start the turn again. Let's see if it's working this time with the wind correction. So this is the time where we will try to intercept that again. Ha! This time! That was the correct wind correction angle.
Hey, Carson.
Hello.
I'm just doing some work. Figured I'd log in the server. We've been having a couple new people log in, so I'm just hanging out. Oops, sorry. I don't know if that came across. Did you hear what I said?
No, not really, sorry. Some busy ATC.
Okay, I'll let you be.
It's not really the nav track. I know why he's losing that VOR so badly. Alright, that's the point where we will turn. No, turn to the opposite direction. Shit. Ah, Jesus Christ. Okay, we're gonna practice that just some more. Knots crosswind component. Oh, 7 degrees correction. So the heading 350 that we're flying is totally correct because we need to correct 7 degrees. And on that outbound leg 357 we are heading now 350. There's the wind start to level again. Oh, actually, that should be when the VOR needle is changing. That's right now. Just gonna fly some more holdings until we get the perfect holding. running a bit low on frames, and that's pretty annoying. But I know what's causing that. Shit, now I forgot the timer. Sorry. Okay, only one more turn and then that will be it. That is not really looking good. That's a perfect one. Data 0 Charlie Oscar after next turn, request published, LS approach runway 25 out of Luburg. Greenwich 1031 cleared, publish LS approach runway 25 out of Luburg, Wilco Delta Charlie Oscar. So we are on that nav again, and now it's the published LS approach runway 25 out of Luburg. We follow that radial 139er. At 5 DME Luburg we can descend to 4000, at 10.1 DME Luburg we turn right to intercept that ILS. For some reason that turn didn't really end on the radio. As it was supposed to be. Might be that the wind has changed a little bit. So that course 139 is next. It's a 60 degrees turn. We want to turn right now. Oops. Gotta account for that wind correction. So QNH is now 1031 and max altitude is 4000 feet. Can speed up a little bit. The turn starts at 10.1 DME loop work. So that's 10 DME. We're gonna switch to there. Switch to heading and turn. Oops, that turn was a little bit too fast. You were too fast and turned too late, and that's what's happening. You're overshooting. But since we are now at a good angle, we will still capture that. We'll leave that needle right here because for the missed approach, well, first of all we will need Stuttgart and then loop out of Stuttgart. So I actually also want to have that VOR1 needle. Delta Sierra Charlie Oscar established 25. Tower 118 Delta Sierra Charlie Oscar, Servus. So the missed approach is 6,000 feet. Tower, Servus, Delta, Sierra Charlie Oscar, LS 25. Runway 25, clear to land, Delta, Sierra Charlie Oscar. Some visibility right here. 118 med 6 Dennis Sierra Charlie Oscar, tschüss. Und guten Abend, Delta Dennis Sierra Charlie Oscar und Charlie. Der Dennis Sierra Charlie Oscar, we are General Aviation. Via Sierra and Foxtrot to entry 2. Der Dennis Sierra Charlie Oscar. Tschüss. Ah, sorry, it's entry 3. That's it. Hmm. That was quite exhausting. Let's just see. Looks like we only once hit that perfectly. No. Okay. What I didn't calculate was, of course, the because that deviation probably always came from um, the also the wind correction that we didn't have when we were making the turn, and no idea how to compensate for that. Maybe slow down on the outbound turn. No idea. Let's see if that previous leg has been not accepted. Of course. Alright, I don't need to refly that leg at least. That is good. And the question we will need to answer is the X-course, leg number 4. Charlie and Delta flight level 140 inclusive. Maximum 230 knots. 1301, 1353. IVA Tours 1353. We had Munich North Center and the question was so that is that, and I will make the second report just in a second, and I'm gonna leave to buy a new printer. Be right back in the evening probably, so if you're looking to continue that tour with me, tune in later. Bye.